Last night as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by. Now maybe that particular line has a particular resonance with you. Maybe it stokes a memory in you, and it would be no surprise if that's the case. Of course, it's the first line from one of the most famous ballads of all time in Irish folk, Spancil Hill. And I want to start with that today because this is the song that we're going to use to peel back the layers of, first of all, and then to look a little bit deeper into the real, true meaning of the song. Ballads, accorda, are these most powerful things in all cultures, not just Irish, but particularly in Irish culture. I think of them like stories from the ground up. Whereas with a history book, we might have all the facts and the figures, all of the years, all of the people, but we don't have the thoughts of ordinary people. And where a history book could tell us what happened, a ballad can tell us how people felt about that thing. And so they can serve as a kind of an alternative textbook for us. You look at a ballad, you find where it's placed in history, you look at the characters, you look at the feelings, you look at what's going on, and all of a sudden you've learned as much from that song as you may have learned from an entire book. You see, accorda, ballads are emotional stores. They're stores of knowledge, but they're emotional stores as well. And one of the things that I find most interesting about Irish music is a quotation by Frank Hart, or attributed to Frank Hart, where he said that the people in power write the history and those who suffer it write the ballads. And this kind of emphasizes what I'm saying. The ballad is there long before phones, long before photographs. Ballads did the remembering for ordinary people. They passed the messages and the stories on in the form of song. Now, today's song that we're looking at, Spancil Hill, I can remember a couple of years ago watching Celtic play in European tie. I think it was against Bratislava. And the Celtic supporters did a display, tifo as they call it. And it was the lyrics from Spancil Hill, the opening lyrics, "Last night as I lay dreaming." And the imagery accompanying it was a throwback to the memory of the best memory that the club ever had, winning the European Cup in 1967. And it was spurring the team on, to dream big, to go for something bigger. But I thought there was unbelievable power in that particular display, because that song, while it's extremely powerful in and of itself, this ballad that we're going to discuss today, it's known the world over in anywhere where there's Irish people. But Celtic is a club that was built by Irish emigrants. And of course, Spancil Hill is a song about emigration. Now, most of us think that we know Spancil Hill. You may have heard it, you may even have sang it. You know it's about emigration. But by the end of this episode, you'll know the song in much more detail. You'll have learned a little bit extra, and you'll know that it's a true story. Because normally, accorda, a ballad is written in a general sense. It may be about a real historical event, but sometimes the characters are fictional. It's not the case with this one. So, accorda, let's talk about the dream. First of all, a dream is really, really powerful in any culture, but particularly in the Irish culture. Because we have a tradition here of ashlingy or ashlings. It's not just a female name. Ashling means a dream or a vision. And ashlings were written back in the 17th century and around then. They were written by poets who were prevented from saying openly what they wanted, an end to oppression, an end to colonization, an end to imperialism. And what they did was they would write about dreams that they had, where they might meet a spare van, a woman of the sky, an angel, if you like. And time again, this woman would have been representative of Ireland. And the desire that they would express would be kind of a metaphor for freedom from imperialism and freedom from oppression. And so this ballad, using the form of a dream, it goes much, much deeper than just what's obvious on the surface. First, accorda, we have to go to a dream. But let's talk about that dream. So the author takes flight Last night as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by, my mind being bent on rambling to Ireland, I did fly. So in his dream, he's returning home. He's been away from home, he's an emigrant, he's returning home. And he comes back not at any particular time in the year, but a very specific time in the year, the day before the fair. So fairs would happen in every village in Ireland at different times. And this particular one was happening on the 23rd of June. So this is the summer equinox. It's a time when the harvest is coming, a time when matches will be made, a time when people will be out and they'd be celebrating the time of the year. They've survived another winter and they're coming into the summer. And what he does is he goes to see his neighbours. I went to see my neighbours to see what they might say. The old ones were all dead and gone, the young ones turning grey. And within that line, I think it's extremely powerful because he taps into something, the author taps into something there that some emigrants feel, whether they're away for a year, for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, that when they return home, not alone have they missed the place, but they've missed the time. There's a sense of loss, there's a sense of void at the time at which they were away. Sometimes things can look different, sometimes massive changes can be obvious. But even without those changes, the fact that time has passed, so eloquently said in that line, the old ones were all dead and gone, the young ones turning grey. It really packs a punch and it hammers home that message that a returning emigrant, as I said, doesn't just miss the place, doesn't just miss the people, but misses the time, has lost out on time. Next up, Accordia, we get to the love interest within the poem, or within the song, the ballad. I paid a flying visit to my first and only love. She's as white as any lily and as gentle as a dove. She threw her arms around me saying, Johnny, I love you still. She's Ned the farmer's daughter and the pride of Spancil Hill. So what we're coming to there is he's returning home to see his loved one, his sweetheart. And as it turns out, the author of this, it's kind of a chain migration where he had gone and emigrated to America first in order to seek his fortune and to settle down and to make a bit of money. And the promise was that she would come and join him once he was settled and once the money was made. And sometimes this comes true for people and other times it doesn't. And there's something really bittersweet and poignant in kind of her reply to him, because he says, I dreamt I held and kissed her as in the days of yore. And then her response is, she said, Johnny, you're only joking, like many's the time before. So we have this idea that he's written to her saying, he's going to bring her over once he's settled, once there's money made, once he's secure. And of course, by the time he's dreaming about returning home, it's clear that that has not happened. And her kind of retort to him in the dream is, you're only joking, like many's the time before. And then Accordia, we come to probably the most hard-hitting line in the whole song. So we've been, navigating through the dream, through his vision of his return to Ireland and meeting his old neighbours and, of course, meeting his childhood sweetheart. But then, of course, the cock it crew in the morning. It crew both loud and shrill, and I awoke in California, many miles from Spancil Hill. And that ending, because the song is beautiful, the ballad is really, really beautiful, so it's easy, whether you're a singer or a listener, to get lost in the song and to get lost in the vision and lost in the dream-like narration. And of course, that last verse then ends it really abruptly. Right after he meets his sweetheart, right after he meets his only love. And she kind of says to him, like, you're only joking, like many's the time before. He's woken abruptly. The cock it crew in the morning, it crew both loud and shrill. And I awoke in California, many miles from Spancil Hill. It's a real hard stop to what was a beautiful ballad, beautiful vision. And it leaves that kind of poignant sense of bittersweet emotion at the end of it. Now, Accordia, if the ballad wasn't familiar to you, you have the outline of it now. But we need to explore this and go a little bit further, because normally ballads are, while they may be based on real life occurrences or real themes or things that are accurate. Normally the ballad has an anonymous nature. Unless it's specifically about a historical person, sometimes the ballads, particularly about emigration and heartbreak and love, they can be anonymous. This particular ballad, that's not the case. The most popular version, or the most common versions in modern ballad history and modern music, which may be familiar to you, they carry the wrong names for people who actually lived. So if we take, for example, the song's author, according to most modern versions of it, you'd imagine his name is Johnny, because she said, "Johnny, you're only joking like many's the time before." But in fact, the man's name was Mike. The original version of this was Mike. His full name was Michael Considine. Michael Considine emigrated to America as outlined in the song in the 1870s, around about the 1870s. So think about the historical period that we're talking about. It's post-famine. Ireland has lost a massive amount of its population, either through death during the famine, illness during the famine, or emigration, forced economic emigration. And subsequently, pretty much the same pattern took hold. Later there was land wars and agrarian unrest. And as a result of centuries of domination, colonization, imperialism, for many people, the option was to go abroad in order to try to build a stable life. And Michael Considine was one of those people. So he ends up going to Boston initially and later to the West Coast. And the girl that he had promised to bring over, was his childhood sweetheart, a real person by the name of Mary McNamara. In the song, in the modern versions of it, she's mentioned as Ned the farmer's daughter. But the original lyrics have her as Mac the ranger's daughter. So those are the two real people, very real people behind a very, very real story. One other person that's mentioned in the song, in the ballad, is the tailor Quigley. Now, I like his mention within the song. Again, he was a real historical person. But it's very clever the way that the author puts it in there, because it's in the line where he says, or it's in the verse where he says, "The old ones were all dead and gone, the young ones turning grey. And then I met the tailor Quigley, he's as bold as ever still. He used to mend my breeches when I lived at Spancil Hill." So I previously mentioned about how the returning emigrant might sense this kind of a void, this kind of a loss from the time that they left to people moving on. But there's always a constant, isn't there? Like, no matter where you return to, there's always somebody or something that feels like a constant throughout either your life or your experience. And in this particular song, in this particular ballad, it is the tailor Quigley. Now, Accordia, that we have put the real names to the people involved in this particular ballad, the song becomes even more cutting. The song becomes even stronger. Now, the origin of this song, and this is the reason why we know it, is because Michael Considine wrote this as a poem, which he sent home to his nephew. So the survival of Spancil Hill, first of all as a poem and subsequently as a ballad that you might hear out and about, is because he wrote this song, this vision, this dream down and sent it home to his nephew. And of course, Accordia, if the last line of the song hits you, it'll probably hit you even harder once you realise the truth behind the end of the story. Because, of course, the reason why Michael Considine was writing this poem home in the first place is because he was extremely ill. He was suffering, we believe, with TB, tuberculosis. And unfortunately for Michael Considine, he died at the age of just 23. So for him, the vision, the dream that he had of returning back to his sweetheart, Mary McNamara, for him, the dream, the vision that he had of one day returning to Spancil Hill and seeing the fair and seeing his friends and seeing his neighbours and seeing the tailor Quigley, for him, that particular vision, that ashling, that dream, never ever came to fruition. within that, Accordia, there's the real tragedy of forced emigration, of chain emigration. For some people, and everybody's experience, of course, is different. Some people do very well. They get on in the society in which they arrive into. For other people, it's not like that. For some people, it's a journey of poverty, of destitution, of being othered, of being on the outside. And this particular ballad, for me, hits so strongly, so powerfully, for a number of reasons. First of all, it touches on a theme which, as Irish people, as the Irish nation, we're so familiar with: emigration. Down the centuries, it's always been part of the makeup of Irish people due to colonialism, due to exploitation, due to imperialism and other things. The second reason is because there's a love interest or a love element to this. You know, every single human being can associate with that, can understand it. So when you combine the two things together and you put them into a dream or an ashling, as this particular song is, a kind of a modern ashling, it's something that can capture not just the imagination, not just the brain, but the heart. And of course, the sound of the song then, for people who are into the music, with the minor chords laced throughout it, add a little bit of a tragedy, kind of a tragic air and a kind of a sadness to it. So, Cordia, the next time that you hear Spancil Hill, the next time you hear that ballad, you know, think about those themes. Think about the emigration, the forced emigration. Think about the hopes and dreams of people, not just back in the 1870s, but in times before and in times more recent. The hopes and dreams of people who leave their own country and their own area, go to a different country to set up and hope for a better life. Think about the love that gets strained. Think about the family ties that get broken or stretched. And the next time that you hear Spancil Hill, or indeed maybe you sing it yourself, think about Michael Considine and the dream he had of returning to Spancil Hill to see his love, Mary McNamara, and to see Spancil Hill on the fair day, a dream or an ashling or a vision that he never ever achieved in his young life, just 23 years of age. Maccordia Dílis, Gurv Míle Mahagut Asoctve in Énachlum. Thank you so much for being with me on this episode. It's the first one where I've got a visual element to it, so I hope you enjoy it. It's something a little bit different. I hope that you've enjoyed the story of Spancil Hill. Be sure and go and listen to a good version of it now. Listen to the story, enjoy it. And Accordia, if you've enjoyed this particular podcast, please do support. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with a friend. Follow on social media. And support on Patreon if you can, Accordia. Gurv Míle Mahagut to all patrons. Accordia, until the next episode, Slán go fóill, agus beirigh bua.